which are like poison. Your illusory energy is unconquerable. No one can see the path of this material energy or tell how it is working. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Maharaj Nabi was inclined to perform great sacrifices for begetting a son. The son might be as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but such a material desire, be it great or insignificant, is brought about by the influence of Maya. A devotee does not at all desire anything for sense gratification. Devotion is therefore explained as devoid of material desires. Anyabilasita sunya. Everyone is subjected to the influence of Maya and entangled in all kinds of material desire. And Maharaj Nabi was no exception. Freedom from Maya's influence is possible when one engages in the service of the great devotees. Maha Charana Seva. Without worshipping the lotus feet of a great devotee, one cannot be freed from Maya's influence. Srila Narottam Das Thakur therefore says, Chadiya Vaishnava Seva Nishtara Payachi Keva. Who has been freed from Maya's clutches without serving the lotus feet of a Vaishnava? Maya is aparajita, and her influence is also aparajita, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Daivi hiesha gunamayi mammaya dvarachaya. This divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. Only a devotee can surpass Maya's great influence. There was no fault on Maharaj Nabi's part that he wanted a son. He wanted a son like the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the best of all sons. By the association of the Lord's devotee, one no longer desires material opulence. This is confirmed in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 22, text 54. Sadhu Sangha, Sada Shastra, Koi. Lava Matra, Sadhu Sangha, Sabha Siddhi Hoy. And Madhya Lila, chapter 22, text 51. Mahat Kripa Vina Kona Kami Bhakti Naya. Krishna Bhakti Dura Rahu Samsara Nahi Shaya. If one is serious about escaping Maya's influence and returning home back to Godhead, one must associate with a silent devotee. That is the verdict of all scriptures. By the slight association of a devotee, one can be freed from the clutches of Maya. Without the mercy of a pure devotee, one cannot get freedom by any means. Certainly, a pure devotee's association is necessary in order to obtain the living service of the Lord. One cannot be freed from Maya's clutches without sadhu sangha, the benediction of a great devotee. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, chapter 5, text 32, Prahlad Maharaj says, Naishamatis tavad urukramangriam sprisatya yata gamo yadata mahishaya yasam padarajo vishekam niskinchanam na vrinita yavat. One cannot become the Lord's pure devotee without taking the dust of a great devotee on his head. Pada rajo vishekam. A pure devotee is niskinchana. He has no material desire to enjoy the material world. One has to take shelter of such a pure devotee in order to attain his qualities. The pure devotee is always free from the clutches of Maya and her influence. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chaksharan Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktarinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Vanshikapatrubhischa Kripasindhubhyevacha Varidhanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So I was just reading this morning in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's a nice conversation with Lord Chaitanya and Sanatana Goswami. Haridas Thakur is there as well, and they're talking about humility, and Srila Prabhupada makes a very nice point in the purport that an actual devotee doesn't consider himself a devotee, which is interesting. The more advanced you become, the less advanced you feel you are, as you become more and more free of pride. So this pride is what prevents people from taking the dust. This whole purport is about taking the dust of the lotus feet of the devotee. And then there's that prayer by Prahlad Maharaj, who has ever escaped the influence of Maya without taking the dust from the lotus feet of a pure devotee. So the pride is the thing that prevents us accessing this wonderful resource, which is one cannot become the Lord's pure devotee without taking the dust of a great devotee on his head. And that means literally taking the dust. It's not just like a figurative thing, like an analogy where it's actually to take the dust from the lotus feet of the pure devotee and put them on your head. And sometimes you may offend a pure devotee, and the pure devotee doesn't actually take offense, but the dust on the lotus feet of the pure devotee takes offense. Have you heard that one? No. The dust from the lotus feet of the pure devotee can take offense. We have to be very careful about how we associate with devotees and how we can get free from pride. So I was listening yesterday to Shiva Rama was just giving the Shikshastikam, and the first two, the Shikshastikam are 8 prayers which Lord Chaitanya wrote or were written down that Lord Chaitanya said, and they're the only verses that Lord Chaitanya left us with that he personally wrote. So the first two, Chaitadapanam Arjanam, Bhava Mahadavagniyapapanam, Shrikareva Chandrika Vitaranam, Vidivada Jivanam, Anandam, Vadivadadam, Padipanam, Panan Vitsvadanam, Savatma Snapanam Param, Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. Namna Kariva Buddha Sava Shakti is the Tarapata, is the second one. So they deal with the 4 first stages, which is Shraddha, faith, Sadhu Sangha, association with devotees, Vajana Kriya, to take initiation or become committed, and then Anartha Vritti. Then the next Shikshastikam verse, Trinada Pisa Nichena, Tarora Pisa Hishana, Amanina, Mananidena, Kirtaniya, Sadahari, is the stage where you move into becoming steady. And Shiva Rama calls it the tipping point. There's a tipping point where you decide, okay, I have to start becoming humble now. And if you start becoming humble, then you get the mercy of the holy name. And if you're not humble, if you have pride, then this prevents you coming into the next stage, which is Nishtha, which is where you become fixed. So that's the stage being referred to in the 3rd verse of the Shikshastikam, becoming fixed, becoming steady. So it's interesting, isn't it? Because if you say, oh, you meet Bhakta Bob, he's really fixed up. He's really fixed. And you'd think Bhakta Bob would be like, built like the Incredible Hulk, and he's really tough, and he takes cold showers standing on broken glass, and he does a 4 fast on the Ekadashi, and during marathons he doesn't sleep. You think, wow, he's really steady. But his steadiness is more judged by how humble the person is, how free he is from pride. That's the tipping point when you actually become steady. Up until then, you're battling away in Anartha Vritti. And then we maybe have a misconception about what humble, look at him, he's really humble. And we see a devotee, and he doesn't walk anywhere, he crawls everywhere on his belly, and so that he doesn't have to waste time. When he sees somebody, he can immediately just grovel at their feet. So he just stays on his belly all the time, and he crawls into the prasadam room and takes his prasadam off the floor. And he's so humble. And look, he's groveling over there, now it's someone else. So we have a tendency to think humility is like that. But Maharaj was saying Srila Prabhupada's every fifth word was rascal. He was very fiery, and yet Srila Prabhupada was very humble. So how do we understand what real humility is? And he explains real humility is doing things Krishna's way and giving up our own idea of how we think should be. So there's a way to pay obeisances using both hands with the forehead touching the floor, and the mantra that you're saying is said loudly. This is explained. And when entering or leaving the temple, certain colors you shouldn't wear. Don't touch your knee before the deity. Don't have conversation about things before the deity. Don't instruct people before the deity. Don't chastise people. This is all Krishna's way of doing things. And then we have our version of how we do things. We bounce our head off the floor. That's obeisances. We have just one hand down. We mumble something. We tell somebody off in front of the deities. And then we have all our own versions of how we think Krishna consciousness should be practiced. And then we take things, well, Prabhupada said this, and this is okay, I like that. But Prabhupada said that, oh, I don't like that. And then we pick and choose. So then we end up with our version. And that's due to pride. We think we know better. We have our opinion, and therefore we can't associate with the devotees properly. We can't access. In kirtan, we can't dance and sing and be happy with the devotees because of the pride that's there, the false ego, how people are going to look at me. I don't do this type of thing. The pride is interesting. If you break it down, it's I, me, and mine. So the I is I'm the body. The mine is, well, this is my dhoti. It belongs to me. It's wrapped around my body. And the me is, this is my profile. This is how I want people to see me. So I wouldn't wear those trousers because those trousers just aren't me. And I don't wear a dhoti because a dhoti, it's just not me. So I, me, and mine. So this is our. So then this prevents us from doing things Krishna's way. How would Krishna like us? How would Krishna like our hairstyle? How would he like our tilak? How would he like us to associate with each other? How would he like us to do everything that we're doing? If we're doing everything Krishna's way, then we're free of pride. No more pride left. And if we have our idea of how things should be, so at least if we can embrace Srila Prabhupada's example and Srila Prabhupada's instructions wholeheartedly, we may not be able to implement them immediately, but at least if we can embrace them wholeheartedly, then at some point in the future, we will be able to fully. But if we can't even do that, if we even find that some of what Srila Prabhupada is giving we don't want to accept, and we only want to pick and choose what we do want to accept, then not only do we slow the process down, but we may not even achieve the final result in the end anyway. It's like cooking, and you're given the menu, and you say, and you look at it, and you think, well, I don't mind. Well, maybe not that much salt. Actually, I think I'm just going to put half as much in, and chili powder. No chili powder. We'll put cinnamon powder in instead. That's probably going to be a lot better, So at the end of it, when you make it, it comes out, and then people are like, Prabhu, what's this? Well, that's what it said to do. Are you sure that's what it said to do? Well, almost what it said to do in the recipe. Well, Prabhu, it's not what it was supposed to be, So if you miss anything out, then you won't get the proper recipe coming out the oven later on after you've baked it. Everything has to be there to the right amount. And then sometimes you may make a genuine mistake. You may, I forgot. So then you get a chance again, and you try again and again, and eventually everything's coming out first class. So we are practicing devotional service, which means there will be mistakes. But at least if we have the menu, if we haven't taken anything off the menu that's supposed to be there, and we have the recipe, then we've got a chance, at least eventually, of getting it right, A nice story with Srila Prabhupada and Malati Prabhu. And every day she was cooking for Prabhupada, and he was saying too much salt next day, not enough salt next day, too much salt next day, not enough salt. Not enough this, not enough that, too much this, too much. So she decided, well, the best thing for me to do is just to, is for someone else to do it, because I certainly can't seem to do it. So she thought, great, I've come up with a solution here. Just let somebody else be the cook then. And she was just about to tell Srila Prabhupada, I think, and Prabhupada said, go and cook a feast. All my God brothers are coming. And so she couldn't say anything. She just ran off, started making a feast, And she said when she walked in, it was just like a row of dandas, all Prabhupada's godbrothers were there, And she was so embarrassed because normally ladies don't serve like that in the Gaudiya Math, but Srila Prabhupada was very revolutionary. So he had this, so they're kind of looking at this, and she was so embarrassed. She had a sari, she was trying to cover over her head, completely over her head and serve at the same time, And she could hardly see where she was going. She was trying to cover her sari, and Srila Prabhupada turns around to Malati, smiling, and he announces to all his sannyasi godbrothers, he goes, "This is Malati. And all I do is chastise her." And then he said, "But she would slit her throat for me, and I would slit my throat for her." And Malati Prabhu was saying afterwards how it made her realize, although all the fault finding was going on the surface, what was actually going on a deeper level was that Srila Prabhupada was becoming very endeared to her because she was prepared to take all the correction and keep trying to get it right. And so, but by doing that, she actually stole the heart of Srila Prabhupada. And then she wasn't able to see it on that level. And then suddenly Srila Prabhupada showed her what was really going on. I appreciate how committed you are to do this, despite all the difficulties that you're going through. And I reciprocate by saying I would give myself completely to you because you're giving yourself completely to me. So if we do at times find that the rules and regulations are a little difficult, then we should meditate on this pastime. That what's going on in the deeper level is that you're showing your commitment to Krishna, that you want to do things Krishna's way. You want to give up your way, your brand of Krishna consciousness. You just want Krishna's brand, Srila Prabhupada's brand. Krishna consciousness. They have a thing called emotional excavation, and it's to dig deeper in and see what our original intention was when we first took up Krishna consciousness. Because we read the books and Srila Prabhupada talked about pure devotion, and everyone's initial intention when they first took up Krishna consciousness was the intention to become a pure devotee. And then along the way, you may fall into association of others whose faith has become mixed, and you don't. No, but that's a bit fanatical, and then it all starts to get watered down. So we should dig deep into our original reasons why we took up Krishna consciousness. It was to become pure devotee. It was to go home in this lifetime and be with Krishna. That was the initial thrust of our enthusiasm, and we have to protect that now. Any questions or comments? It's an interesting way of looking at pride, isn't it? Because you may have your idea of the way things are, and you may play a very humble role, and somebody else may be really trying to do what Krishna wants, and he may be very assertive. You look at the two and you think, well, he's a lot more humble than him. But that would only be a superficial understanding of who's proud and who's humble. To want to do the right thing is real humility. And it's interesting in the there was a devotee that left Krishna consciousness. He was a big leader, and when he left, I always remember Shiv Rama said, the one thing that Krishna cannot stand is pride. It's the one thing he detests. Krishna can tolerate a lot, but he can't handle pride. And it's interesting in the 16th chapter, when Krishna explains to Arjuna the divine qualities, he says, Damba, Dapana, Bhimanascha, Krodha, Palusha, Devacha. Pride, arrogance, conceit, anger, harshness, and ignorance. These qualities belong to those of demoniac nature. So they're so antithetical to Krishna consciousness to have pride. It's completely the thing it's the thing we most do not want to have. It's the thing which will be the most detrimental. And the most antagonistic. if you break down stubbornness, opinionatedness, harshness, and even the anger that is born, the anger is born because of the pride. How dare he say that to me? Who does he think he is? And then there's false ego. You're protecting something which isn't even worth protecting. It's like you're in this little toy car and someone comes up and kicks the toy car and you jump out. Who do you think you are kicking me? But you're not the toy car. You're just driving it. You're just driving the body. It's a vehicle. So it's false ego, false, and then that causes the pride. You see. So they're all kind of interlinked. Any questions, comments? Felix Prabhu.
What's the difference between doing your own thing and doing something your own? For example,
Should you take the mic? You don't hear him.
Hare Krishna. Thanks for a wonderful class. It's very interesting what you're saying about pride, how you define pride. It gave me a lot of realization. But I'm just thinking, scanning myself for pride, and I'm just wondering, what is the difference between making something your own and doing your own thing? So, like, for example, on Sankirtan, you might use your own Sankirtan lines, way of talking to people, your own style. But then there may be some things that one could do that is your own thing as well. So that's just one example. Or like, say, cleaning. Everyone might have a slightly different way of cleaning, but then there might be a way not to clean. So I just wonder if you could define doing your own thing and making it your own.
So if you're doing your own thing, if it's favorable to Krishna consciousness, if it's engaging people, if it's cleaning the floor nicely, and you have a way of doing it that achieves that. There's four maxims, isn't there? Purity is the force, books are the basis, preaching is the essence, and utility is the principle. So there's quite a few things that Prabhupada did, and his godbrothers didn't like it. He said, well, that's not the way we do things, that's your idea of how to do it. And he was criticized for that. You should just do the way we do things, the way our Guru Maharaj has shown us how to do things. So you could say that. But it was very favorable for spreading Krishna consciousness. And Srila Prabhupada's very heavy in some of his purports in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, saying, well, if it's favorable, if you get more books distributed and more people take up Krishna consciousness, if you can clean the temple room floor 3 times faster and it's twice as clean, then utility is the principle. So you'd have to look not only at the method, but also the result achieved by the method. So it may be his way of doing it is he has mystic cities. So when he cleans the floor, he's floating 6 inches off the ground, sliding along with a sponge in each hand, and he covers the ground really, really fast. And everyone said, well, that's not the way we do the floor up here at the bar. And, well, he's got mystic cities, He's been up in the Himalayas for 30 years, meditating in a cave, and that's the way he does it. But the floor is really clean, so everyone's happy and everything's fine, When you're making prasadam, if the devotees like the prasadam, then you may have your way of doing it. But it's the result is the devotees are pleased, and if you do your own way, and then the devotees are choking and gasping because you put 3 cups of chili powder in the chutney, and you say, well, that's my way of doing it. And so, well, please stop doing it your way. So you have to judge also by how the devotees are pleased. If the devotees are pleased by the way that you're doing it, and the people on Sankirtan that you're engaging are pleased, they take the book and they go away and say, I met this really, he was kind of funny, but he was very nice, and I think I'm going to go along to the temple this Sunday. Then great. You've achieved the goal. You have to know what the goal is to know whether you're going about it in the right way to achieve it, you see.
Is it according to Vox Populi?
It may be, yeah. You may have to concede Vox Populi. You may have to concede your fanatic take on Krishna consciousness to bring people a little closer. It's like one time they were all sitting, and Srila Prabhupada was there, and one of the devotees said, Srila Prabhupada, you know, there's onions in the sabji. And Srila Prabhupada said, shut up and eat it. So these Indian family and spent a long time, you know, making all these, and if the devotees had just stood up and said, there's onions in it, nonsense, and walked out the house, then they wouldn't have got their donation. They would probably never seen the Indians again. So Prabhupada understood it to concede because we have to try and help the people in their Krishna consciousness and engage them. So that's the mature understanding of what Krishna consciousness is, not the fanatical, immature. In fact, it's interesting, you know, fanatical, niyamagraha. Niyamagraha means someone who follows the rules and regulations. But the duality is, oh, there's onions in it, there's onions in it. But then the next minute, they don't follow any rules and regulations. And they're eating a hot dog with onions and mustard and tomato sauce all over it. So they didn't understand what the reason for the principles were in the first place. So they get caught up in all the finicky, itsy-bitsy details. So we have to understand the principle. Well, why are we not eating onions? And why are we going to this person's house to eat what they've prepared? We have to try and understand the bigger picture and not get caught up with the... if we allow the smaller consideration to overshadow the bigger consideration, then that'll be detrimental to everybody, to yourself, even though you didn't eat the onions, because you put the people off, so you won't get any credit. The people won't get any credit because they'll be upset and disturbed, maybe offensive in their mind. So you see why it's so important that we have association of devotees, because on our own, we may not be able to manage to fathom out what should be done in this particular situation. And sometimes even the person that we're cooperating with, who's our authority, may say something which later turns out to be wrong. But Shri Ramash has just been saying recently, he put out a podcast to say he disagreed with something. But at the same time, he said, but still I'm an ISKCON man, and I will follow wherever the GBC says. So I will do that, I will sacrifice. So of all the things that you can sacrifice, your opinion is probably the most difficult one. Your pride, your idea of the way things should be, is the hardest thing to sacrifice. And you do that for the greater good of wherever the community decides, you know. And then later on, if it becomes apparent that we shouldn't be eating onions, or whatever it happens to be, then it will self-correct. But we cooperate and we comply, and we humbly put aside our idea, our opinion, even if it's right, because the even greater right thing there is to follow wherever the general body of devotees have decided. So that becomes the more important consideration.
I'll quote here from Srila Prabhupada's letter where he explains opinions. Every individual being must have his opinion. That is the significance of individuality. But all such differences of opinions must coincide in Krishna. If there is a scope of having a Krishna conscious opinion that is can be still, according to Guru Shadhu Sastra, you can see there is a variety of opinions in the movement. In terms of emphasis, somebody will emphasize Harinam, somebody reading books, book distribution, etc. But it's those opinions concern Krishna. So what I understand of what you're saying about having an opinion that doesn't coincide in Krishna, which is outside of the relevant scope of Krishna consciousness, that is a wrong thing to do. But we have an opinion that is according to Guru Sadhu and Shastra, and maybe a different angle of what other people think we may emphasize what we think is important.
Yeah, it's interesting because Srila Prabhupada didn't want his letters to be printed or circulated or quoted. He said everything should be from my books. So there is Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. It's actually Shastra because the Guru and the Sadhu are only repeating the Shastra. If they're not repeating the Shastra, then they're not Guru and they're not Sadhu. So the real thing. So he said everything is in my books. He said you do not have to... so sometimes somebody could take something from Srila Prabhupada's books out of context. And that's why it's important when we talk about Srila Prabhupada's books, that the person who is talking about Srila Prabhupada's books has read every one of Srila Prabhupada's books. He may just come across some stray sentiment in one verse, which is in a particular context, and then take that and say, well, Prabhupada said it's okay to eat onions. But that wouldn't be the comprehensive understanding of what Srila Prabhupada was saying, throughout his books. So it's important that we understand. We read the books regularly also. Isn't it interesting that Vaisheshti, he's an initiating spiritual master. Has an impeccable track record in Krishna consciousness. Everybody that knows him loves him. He's such high regard. And he considers he's not capable of doing his duties unless he reads 41 pages of Srila Prabhupada's books every day. Interesting,
It takes around 1.5 hours
to do that. 1.5 hours, wow. I was wondering how long it took, actually. I normally do 35 minutes, and I think I'm doing really well. But yes, so we see how important it is that we, if we want to follow, then we have to know what it is we're supposed to be doing, isn't it? And there's a devotee of his caliber, and he's saying you need, for an hour and a half, you need to really align your intelligence with how you should be behaving, how you should be... Because the books don't just explain how you should behave, they explain how you should think, how you should feel. Lord Chaitanya's instructions, they're like the essence of Krishna consciousness. And not one of the instructions are about building temples or distributing books. They're all about chanting the holy name. And it's about how you feel, what's your attitude in a humble state of mind. It's all about how you're feeling, how you're relating to others. It's that's the essential takeaway of all the books that Srila Prabhupada is giving is you read all the books and you go away and then you say something and you can look at the person and decide, is he saying that in a humble state of mind? Does he consider himself lower than the straw in the street? Is he more tolerant than the tree? Is he devoid of all sense of false prestige? Is he ready to offer all respect to others? Then if he is, then okay, so the statement must be aligned with the Srila Prabhupada's teachings. And if he's saying, well, Prabhupada said this in the book, and you shouldn't be eating onions, all right? It's like, well, but you haven't got the right mood. You haven't aligned. You've pulled something out, and you're using it now to club somebody to death to show that you're better than him. Isn't it? It's got nothing to do with actually following, actually doing it the proper way. I'm doing it my way.
I was wondering if you were to define a bit the difference between being scientific and technical, as the books are to science, Krishna consciousness, and being mechanical. What the difference there, and does pride play a role in being mechanical as opposed to technical and scientific process?
Yeah, well, it's interesting actually. What Felix is asking is, in the Bhagavatam, we see a lot of scientific and technical knowledge. So how do we avoid falling into the trap of applying Krishna consciousness in the mechanical way, in the technical way? I did this, then I rung the bell, I went round 4 times with the flower, I followed the process. So how do we avoid mechanical? Well, interestingly enough, that word came up also in the Shikshastakam classes by Shiva Ramaj as lifeless. If something is mechanical, it's lifeless. So you're chanting and you're associating with the devotees, but in a lifeless way. Have you ever seen a devotee in kirtan like that? Sometimes he's in the kirtan and he's looking at the clock and he's thinking, everyone else is singing Hare Krishna, he's singing 10 minutes to go, before we have to stop. 9 minutes to go before we have to stop. So he's mechanically there, he's doing the process, he's in the kirtan, he's got his dhoti on, he's saying Hari Bol, but he's lifeless. He's not really, he's physically there, but his attitude's not right, he's not aligned really with what's wanted. So you can do that, that would be a superficial practice of Krishna consciousness. What Mahatma Guru calls dead mantras, you can chant dead mantras. He says they're like blank bullets. If somebody comes running up to you and you go, okay, stop, and he doesn't stop, and then you start shooting blank bullets, the person just starts laughing at you. He says, so you can't stop Maya with blank mantras. If you want to stop Maya, the mantras have to be alive. In fact, that's the book, isn't it, by Satyananda Maharaj, it's called The Living Name. So is the name alive when you're chanting? Is it dancing on your tongue? Or is it just like an obstacle preventing you from getting where you want to get? And you're having to do this because you want to get bliss, you want to get peace of mind, you want to be free from sinful reaction. So you're having to do this thing which is like an obstacle to get what you want. So then it becomes a mechanical thing. I'm speaking from experience. Lifeless. Mechanical is lifeless. And Krishna consciousness is spontaneous. It's a natural, spontaneous desire to want to engage in serving in a loving way. So we can have a look today at what we're doing, and we can keep an eye on how many things we're doing lovingly and really wanting to do it to serve. And if we're not, then we'll have to upgrade the consciousness, the intention. But we can do that immediately, although we can't become pure devotees immediately. We can want to become pure devotees immediately. We can just decide right now, I want to be a pure devotee. You can decide that right now if you want. And it may take some time, or at least they say a man is not judged by where he is, but what his intentions are. They're much more important, what your intentions are. Your intention is to become free of your pride, of doing things your way, of becoming more and more malleable to how Krishna wants us to be. How would Krishna like us to be? How would Krishna like us to engage in our activities today? That's Krishna consciousness. And then Krishna, the reward for that is that as you do start to do things more the way Krishna wants, his reward is that he makes you conscious of him. You start becoming aware that Krishna is not just a painting on the wall or an inert figure on the altar, but he's a living, breathing, feeling, conscious entity. And we have a relationship with him. And he wants to have a relationship with us. That's why we're here in the first place. Because he wants a relationship with us. Krishna doesn't want a relationship with anyone that he doesn't like. But there isn't anyone he doesn't like. Because he created everybody. So he loves everybody. And we don't even know who we are, you see. So we don't understand how somebody could love us that much. Because our false ego of ourselves is that we're not very much value. And Krishna can see our real potential, who we really are. And so he's missing us. We've forgotten Krishna, but Krishna has not forgotten us. And he's hankering for us. He wants us to go back. It's the one thing he doesn't have. He has everything, but he doesn't have our love. He doesn't have a living relationship with us. He wants that. And so he's clearly explaining in the Bhagavad Gita how to think toward him, how to behave, how to relate to him, and give up this miserable world, this temporary miserable world. You know that verse? The Bhagavad Gita? You know? Give up this temporary miserable world and engage in loving service to me. Jai.
The question online from Laura: what color should we mat wear in front of the deities, please?
Nectar of devotion. Do you know what it is? The nectar of devotion.
It's blue and red. As far as I remember.
Yeah, there's a section. Thank you for your question, Laura. There's a section. I think it's actually just called offenses to the deities. You may be able to just Google it in nectar of devotion. And there's 60 odd different things that we shouldn't do. One of them is chastise somebody, pass air, belch, wear red and blue, touch your knees in front of the deities, sit with your legs spread before the deities, point your feet toward the deities,
Offer obeisances with one hand.
offering obeisance with one hand, or paying obeisances and not saying the mantra. I'm not sure if it mentions that, but I heard that you should say the mantra loudly when you say it as well. Also, entering the temple, ring a bell. You always do that when there's an important person in a room. You don't just barge in. You ring the bell to announce you're going to be coming in, so you don't startle. And then it helps us to treat the deities more like persons, persons that have feelings. One time Srila Prabhupada said to the Pujari, there's a speck of tilak in the deity's eyes, and the Pujari, Srila Prabhupada was a long distance from the deities, they were just small deities. The Pujari went over and he came back and said, I think you're mistaken. He wasn't a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, I think it was in another temple. Could be wrong actually, but he says, no, you're mistaken, Srila Prabhupada. So he went back again and he looked really close and there was a speck of tilak in the corner of the deity's eyes, so then he removed it. But what that signified to me was how alive and communicative the deities are if you're pure enough to receive that, for them to say, can you tell the Pujari, it's really annoying me, I've got this piece of tilak in my eye. So you get a little glimpse, a little insight into what's actually going on the spiritual platform. Jai. Iskon Guruvinda ki. Srila Prabhupada ki. Nitai Gaura Premanandi. Haribo. Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki. Jai.